I appreciate you guys, having me out here to give this lecture. I spend a lot of my time teaching and traveling now, and it's always hard to impart a lot of information within 2 hours, 3 hours, what have you. So I'm going to do my best. Always feel free to ask questions if you see me out and about, because there's a lot of intricacies when it comes to detection that we overlook, but yet it's the most litigated aspect in the canine field. But it's also, when it comes to training, if you have the dual purpose dogs, the one in comparison you train the least. So we'll discuss some of those things that come from that. So for my background, I initially started off in the Air Force as a military working dog handler. During that time I was lucky enough to be stationed in Germany. So I ended up making quick friends with a lot of German police guys, and ended up later on going through the German police dog handler school. Came back to the United States, then years later became a police officer in Florida, then later in Texas, and then later that turned into contract work, where I became a contract instructor for the Navy SEAL program on the West Coast over SEAL Teams 1, 3, 5, and 7. That's where I was confident when I went into that job, thinking, I'd been a cop, I'd been training dogs since I was, 20. And then I get to that career field, and you're in a room, in an ops meeting, and you have Navy SEAL command staff asking you, can we do this with a dog, yes or no? And you start to question how well you've trained the dogs to do some of the stuff that they ask you to do. So then that forced me to say, okay, there's got to be information and answers that I can come up with to better what I do, and then that's what led me into the scientific side of the dog world. And I got lucky in a sense by teaming up with some really smart people. Sometimes I sat in these rooms and I was like, I definitely don't belong in here with a lot of people, these PhDs, some from Harvard and so forth. But what it showed me was there was so much we didn't know, both on the side of being dog handlers, and on the other side, the scientific community was still learning what there was about dogs and what we could do, what our capabilities were. And there's a lot of information that gets passed down from us from other previous trainers, handlers for lots of years. So we have to kind of weed through what is actual fact, what isn't. And it's not about being right or wrong. That's one of the biggest things that we go through in our career field. Our egos want us to be right or wrong. And the real aspect is, when it comes to experience in science, it's what is the truth. And we want to figure out what the truth is. So as I went through this, as you can see there, I had teamed up with Duke University, Texas Tech University, and then later part of an American Standards Board for forensic science, which included evidence collection, the use of dogs, and dogs now being deemed a sensor on the legal side of things. And as you guys know, when you have a sensor, such as a laser, radar, intoxilizer, what do you have to do to that machine before and after every use? Calibrate it, make sure it works, verify. You can't just say, here's my 4-inch binder, believe me, it works. And it's all based on magic. I'm the dog handler, I know. So we have to balance that out quite a bit. So that kind of led me to the podcast that I have, Canine's Talking Sense, which is now 6 years in the running. So I did it kind of before everybody who has a dog has a podcast now. But what I wanted to do in that world was give you guys access to the people that I was getting information from. Because as we all know, on social media, there's tons of information out there, but which one do you follow? Do you follow the most popular ones? Do you follow the ones that align with your point of view? So I wanted to give a location where there's lots of different points of views. They don't have to even agree with me. I just want information to be shared to all of you guys, so that way you guys can get better at what you do. So at the end of this, which means tomorrow, because I'm going to split this class into 2 pieces, tomorrow there will be a QR code at the end. I have to put that there because I forget. There'll be a QR code at the end. You can scan the QR code and you will get the information from this PowerPoint. You'll get this actual PowerPoint. So I still say take notes because it gets down and deep here pretty soon. So labels and politics, I gotta start off with this first. So handler, trainer, master trainer, what does it all mean? Arbitrary titles. In our industry, you are respected or feared or hated by your title. The title doesn't mean shit when it comes to dogs. Do you think your dog gives a shit whether you're a master trainer, you're their buddy, you're the one that works with them. And all of you in this room, basically, what's your primary job? Is your primary job a dog trainer, dog handler, or is your primary job a law enforcement officer? You're a cop. And your agencies expect you to be trainers. They put that burden on you because the agencies don't understand, as much as you do, the investment that truly has to go into canine. It's nothing you're going to get in a 5-week school. It's nothing you're going to get in a 4-week school. Your whole first year, those who have been doing it long enough, your first year, what was that like? It's a monkey fucking a football, right? So you don't even know what you don't know yet. Our counterparts around the world don't view it like us. In Europe, it's a 2-year process before you actually work the street by yourself with your dog. You start from 0, you're in training for an entire year, then you have another year of like FTO kind of thing, their version of that. And that's how they have a much more invested, solid program. And they also don't necessarily walk around with titles anymore because they all have varied levels of experience. And they specialize, which is a bigger thing that we need to embrace more ourselves, and I'll get into that ahead. But by specialties, we will get better at what we do versus asking all of you guys to try to do everything. And we all know how well that works out. So when we have these labels, we use this. Then there's the politics. Who does this? Do you use a marker? Do you not? Are you an e-collar user or not? Do you use pseudo or real? All of these things are just lines in the sand that put people in camps, and that doesn't help grow anything. And we have to understand we all have one mission, right? Everybody in this room who's a dog handler has one mission, and that is deploy your dog safely within policy and within state statute and legal aspects. So at the end of the day, instead of bickering with each other, hopping on Facebook and becoming keyboard warriors, how about the rising tide lifts all boats? If we get on the same page, though we may not have to agree, because guess what? Every single dog in this room is not the same. Every single person in this room is not the same. We are all different. We all have to be able to understand those differences and work with what's best for that team, despite all these labels. We have that saying there, and it happens within our industry the most. Well, we've always done it that way. That's why. We've always done it. It worked. And I'm not arguing that. But name anything that hasn't evolved. How many officers in here that have been around long enough still remember the report writing room with a typewriter in it? I do. It was still there when I first started. Imagine if I took this from you. I said, go back to the typewriter. You know how many of you guys would be bitching and moaning and crying? Well, understand that with our dogs, the same things happen. There's evolution to what we do. We know more now. We've gained more knowledge in the past 20 years than we did the previous 100 when it's come to dogs. So we have to understand that certain things work better or more efficient. It's not a dig on a thing that we did in the past. It's just that we understand there's a better, more efficient or effective way to communicate or deploy. How many still walk around with the 4-cell or 4D cell mag light? Yeah, we got one. Everybody else has got a flashlight this fucking big now. So things change, right? So this is why I bring this up, because I want us to understand following data and testing is your science part. Both of these worlds mixed together. Experience and science is not one or the other. They work in conjunction. Because every scientist I know, a lot of them are going to tell you, when I ask sometimes something specific about this or that, and you'll hear it on the podcast when I talk to people, we haven't looked at it in that way. We haven't tested that yet. Or sometimes we have tested that, and this has been our answer on this sample size. And it's helpful, but it isn't the end-all be-all. So, I start off with this saying before I get any further. Those are my Game of Thrones fans. Belief is the death of reason. You will fight for something that you believe in despite facts to the contrary. Because we have the A-type personalities that the world needs us to have, and swallowing our pride and going, you know what, I should probably change that, or I should look at that differently, is not the easiest thing for us to do. You know how many times I've wanted to say, fuck you, I'm doing it this way anyway? But with that said, I have become far more open-minded, and I constantly change throughout my career. I mean, now I'm training, and some of you guys may know who he is, Michael Ellis. The guy's been around a long time. He's a legend in a lot of different dog training circles. And being around him has forced me to make changes, to better myself. So I always encourage you in this room to be willing to set aside some of our previous thoughts and go, you know what, I wonder how that will work, or could that be more effective and more efficient to what I do? So, current topics in the detection dog world. These are just some bullet points. We're not going to get into all of them, but these are the points before I get to the class points. So, I forgot this thing. Here you go. What types of problems do we have in detection, and why? So, throw out some of the things that we're dealing with.
False alert.
There you go. Bingo. One of the biggest ones. False alerts. Methods of training. Should we do something like reality-based training, training methodologies? Does training and reality look the same to the dog, or do they look very different? Does my training on vehicles look like the fleet parking lot on a Thursday night when it's training, but yet my job is to be on the side of their highway, vehicles full of shit and food and baby diapers and all kinds of crap because they've been living in their car, but yet your training is that nice, pristine city fleet vehicle, detective vehicles or whatever we can get our hands on. So we have to look at things and say, hey, what can we do to better that? Another one, documentation, data, and reporting of errors and corrective actions. I know when I started, what was passed down to me was, hey, you treat the legal system like a mushroom. You feed it shit and you keep it in the dark. You don't ever tell them what you did wrong. You don't ever document an error. Because if you do, you open yourself up for legal attack. Well, how well has that worked for us? What does society view you as? Society views us as people who they can't trust based on the information we provide them. So now, we have to be overly transparent. Now, nearly all of you walk around with body cameras on you because society says, I can't trust you. That stuff you write down in reports, I don't know if I believe it anymore. So you have to walk around with a camera on you all the time. And if your records, and every science-based program out there will tell you if there's 100%, something is wrong. Nothing is 100%, especially an animal. And all of you guys know, because you work dogs, are they perfect? Hell no. Are you perfect? Absolutely not. So why do the records reflect near perfection? If they do, that tells me one of a couple things. First one is your training is way too easy. You have set it up so you can be successful and walk away with a win. And that's not testing yourself. That's not putting yourself in those dark, uncomfortable places where it sucks to suck. Where you have to reflect on what happened and the onus comes back to you. So we have to say, okay, what do I need to do to correct this action? If my dog falls, then what do I do? Why did it false? What did we discover? Okay, now how do we fix it? And you document that now. What did Florida v. Harris tell us? Told you, certifications don't mean shit, technically. It's your training records that matter. And if your training records look all perfect, now your integrity comes into question. So I tell every team that I work with, hey, we're going to document everything, the good, bad, and the ugly. Because that way, if questioned, I have an opportunity to explain. Hey, we're dog handlers. I work my dog. My dog's not perfect. Probable cause. What's the requirement for probable cause? Everybody's going to be like, give me some different answers. The basic legal side, I'll take this from Mike Kamisic from Sheepdog Guardian. Just get the ball to the 49-yard line. That's all you have to do. It's probable. But yet we operate dogs as if it's a certainty. And we try to paint this picture that if my dog does this, it means that. I guarantee you, every single one of you in this room, if you've deployed your dog enough, have done a vehicle sniff, your dog is indicated, you've gone in the vehicle and you haven't found anything. And if you haven't, then you're not doing it enough. So we understand that there's things that happen we don't know the answer to per se, but I may have also seen these similar things in training. I may be training in that city fleet yard. My dog indicates, and I will watch handler after handler come up with any oh, these dirty city workers, they probably got dope on them. That's probably why my dog alerted. Meanwhile, no other dog did, but yours did. You know how many times as a cop we dug around a car back when marijuana was illegal and we found McDonald's sesame seeds? We're like, shake! I got shake right here. Like, dude, that's a sesame seed. So we have to understand, document what we do, corrective actions, and that way we have transparency. Currency sniffs. Currency sniffs is something that needs to be set up and become universal amongst all the agencies. And it isn't just throw a bag of cash on the ground, run your dog around it, and hope it sits. No, it needs to be blind to you. There needs to be a process to it. You don't know the answer. There needs to be circulated, uncirculated currency in the lineups along with the target currency, and you don't know which container is which. So that way, when you do the runs and your dog were to alert to the questioned currency, then we can say there's a better nexus to the crime. But right now, what happens is drug units are like, hey, dog man, come over here. See that bag right there? Run your dog on it real quick. We know that dope's got, or that money's got dope on it. And your dog goes around it, and your dog's bouncing around, stepping on the bag, not even half sniffing it, and you're like, yeah, I think so. Because all they want is the can opener. All they want is that connection. Don't be that handler that goes to court and they ask you, what was your process for currency sniffs? And you're like, process? The process was I went and searched a bag. You will make case law. I have read various cases where they tear apart the process. And if the money's high enough, they care. And they will fight you for it. So we have to have procedures when it comes to currency sniffs. CBD, hemp, and cannabis. I mean, I think it was literally 3 weeks ago, the research from Ken Furton and Dr. Frank Kelvin, or Kelvin Frank, came out, and Steve Antamarachi all conducted the research on hemp versus marijuana. If you haven't heard the podcast they've been on, I interviewed Steve on mine a few months ago. We couldn't talk about it all the way then because the research hadn't been released. But those who don't know is, through the research, they can clearly say a dog trained on marijuana will alert to hemp until proofed off of it. The hemp part is different enough that it's easier to proof. But you can't assume that if your dog's trained on marijuana, it won't alert to hemp. So it's important, and I'll get into this stuff later on or by tomorrow, the procedures we need to put in place to show that our dog is clear about what is responding to and searching for. The next big one you guys deal with is fentanyl. And the practices on how to train fentanyl are all over the map. Initially, I'd say about 5-6 years ago when fentanyl first hit the market, we all were able to stay away from it. We were all like, no, we can't train our dogs on that. The risk isn't worth the reward. Now your agencies are like, I don't give a shit. I'm getting pressure from the mayor, from the governor, whoever. Some of the biggest things that we face within working detection dogs, and some accountability aspect from our end on ways we can improve or how we should improve, and a path how to get there is what I'll start going into today. I'm going to rehash a few things again just to kind of highlight, and then we'll get into the process that can help us get better. So, like I was saying, handler communication, reward sequence, and procedures when training and deployment. A lot of times what that says is what you do in training doesn't match up with what you're doing in reality. In training, it's heavy reward based. Lots of reinforcement from the dog, lots of known areas. The dog knows this location means we're going to do some training and it's Christmas morning. And then all of a sudden on the side of the roadway with lights and sirens, other officers, dirty cars, that usually doesn't even lead into reinforcement whatsoever. So we got to start blending those two worlds together so the dog understands. Condition reinforcers, direct or indirect. So within the industry, probably, and I think it was 2012 was one of my first classes I did on how to use a condition reinforcer. Condition reinforcer, like I was saying yesterday, is just the technical term for a marker. So, like I was saying, there's pros and cons to every methodology that you use. For all the years before that, we used what was called direct, which meant you walked up and paid at the source of odor. That is extremely valuable as well. Where confusion comes in is when everybody wants to say it's all or nothing. And it's not all or nothing. You should be able to do both. In the beginning, especially when I'm teaching the dog, I'm rewarding at the location of odor. I'm building value to the dog that here is important. While I'm doing that, I'm also showing the dog that, hey, back to me is relevant too. I do both with the use of a condition reinforcer. My dog basically works to hear a signal. One signal means I'm going that way. One signal means I'm coming back this way. This actually is what makes the dog be more rigid. But when you have constant expectation in one area or the other, there's fallout depending on the dog and its motivation. I forgot to turn my camera on, so I can do that real quick while I sit here. And I'll give you a visual example of that here in a second. So if I have my dog who is, you guys know this system, my dog's here, it's sitting, you're going to pay the dog, right? That's the common one. What do most dogs do? Okay, so why does that happen? You got it. That's where the ATM machine's at. That's where the bank is at. They know it's right there. They learn through prediction what you're going to do. And it doesn't take very long for them to start degrading from the source to back here. The same thing can also happen with indirect reward if you aren't doing it with clarity. And what I mean by that is where I think it was Mike was talking yesterday, being on the side talking. It's when you move and then you mark. It's the other way around. Mark, then move. That's a hard thing for us to do. And I first thought that, oh, it's a dog handler issue. If you're a previous dog handler, it's way harder for you to break the habit of moving or grabbing a reward first and then marking. Turns out, when I'm training a bunch of Navy SEALs who've never touched dogs before in their life, they did the same thing. And it's just human nature that you want to be ready for your dog, so you grab the thing that you know is valuable to them to get ready for it. It's on you to practice Marking, then moving. As soon as the dog hears the signal, whatever it is, you can use a clicker, you can use a word, you can use a whistle, whatever you choose to use, that happens first, and then you reach for your toy. Or, as I do, my toy's already right here. Do your thing. The only way you're going to get this item is by doing your job. And it's clear to my dog. He doesn't follow my horrible doggy magic. Yes?
Is it possible to mark your dog just by putting your hand?
100%. So that's inadvertent cues that become markers. But they're highly inconsistent. That's the problem. Your movement, all of you, just so you guys know, all of you use a marker. It's your physical movement is the marker. The problem with your physical movement is it's not always predicting reward. It predicts error too. However, if I use something on purpose, so for me, it's the word free. My dog goes to odor, locks up, you're going to see videos that are coming up, and he doesn't move until I say free. When I say free, he comes back to me. If I say toy, he's getting rewarded in front of him. So, my dog holds position. This is where you have to proof your movements. So you have to practice walking in, walking out, doing stuff, and that dog does one thing. Stay focused at the location in which they believe odor is coming from. And what is great about the condition reinforcer is the second that dog's focused in there, you give that signal. When the dog hears that signal, they're free to do whatever they want. They can break. And you can be slow about getting your toy out. You don't have to peg your dog in the head anymore by throwing the toy there. So it's about creating a clear process of communication that looks the same on training and your deployments. So now, for me, on the side of the road, when the dog indicates, I can go free. That quietly, in that way, my dog knows it's right, and I can reward them with praise, I can reward them with toy, I can reward them with food. I'm going to make a decision based on my risk or threat on that deployment. So, if I have, let's say, a pretty serious criminal, we know somebody probably is not going to want to go to jail, I'm not going to hoop and holler all over that scene. I'm not going to throw a toy, I want to be as cool and calm as I can possibly be. But I'm going to say the word yes or free, whatever I choose. My dog comes to me. And for me, sometimes my dog gets a food reward. Sometimes he gets a toy reward. Sometimes he gets my praise. One of those things can happen based on the threat of that situation. Sometimes it can be just a word and we're like, we walk away. But I do those same things in training. I do it in training. So my dog doesn't go, oh, wait a second, we're in this condition. This sucks. I don't want to do that anymore. And that's what happens. And you see frustration come out of the dogs, like I was saying yesterday, such as biting car door handles, things of that nature. And we can avoid that by having clarity so you don't become frustrated. Because it's just like you putting money into a vending machine, expecting to get something out, and when it doesn't, what do? You have an emotional response. Your dog is the same way. You put in work, it expects, because training told it, if this happens, I get something for it. But if you stop rewarding under this condition, you have fallout. And you've all seen it in different ways. But you've all heard, you've been told by other trainers and other experienced handlers, you don't want to reward on the street because why?
What if?
I don't know what I'm rewarding. Well, wait a second. If you want the legal system to trust your dog and trust you, why all of a sudden under that condition you don't trust it anymore? If your training is sound, you have the option to reinforce in a number of different ways. It isn't a all or nothing game. That's the problem we put ourselves into. It becomes an all or nothing type game. So, next thing, hierarchy reward. This goes into what I just said. I'm always looking to see, when I start a dog, what do they like? What do they love? What are they okay with? My dogs have different rewards as far as toy goes, and I also know what their favorite rewards are with regards to food. So I'll address the other part. People have always said, ooh, don't use food in detection dog work? Your dog will alert to food. Oh, so under that theory, your dog should be alerting to toy too, right? A reinforcer is a reinforcer is a reinforcer. You should be proofing off of anything and everything that you commonly use. So I should be proofing off toys. I should be proofing off food. But the beauty about what I'm talking about is it's contextual. My dog learns the only way it gets food is under this condition. I hear a marker come to you, I get food. That clarifies it. So therefore, just like you see, remember those that have been around long enough, the Randy Hare videos, you could have tennis balls everywhere. Well, guess what? You could do the same thing with food. Food was not the problem. Food is a old wives' tale that got passed down because trainers back then didn't understand how to work through that concept of the use of food. And they had maybe seen some civilian trainers that had used food and they looked at it as, oh, that's so cute, but that's not the type. I got a big mean asshole over here. He doesn't take food. Then I hear people say, oh, my dog doesn't have food drive. Oh, I promise you, your dog has food drive. Implement intermittent fasting to your dog. You will be amazed how fast they're like, got it, I like food. But for me, I don't just use food in that way. I use food the same way as a toy. I interact with my dog has to play with me to get food. So food becomes, to me, the foundation in which I play. I teach my dog the mechanics of how to play with me using food first and then the toy. So that way I'm not getting my hand chewed on. I'm not getting my dog overly excited just because there's a toy here. There's rules to how we play. But I do it with food first because guess what? They're in a calmer state of drive. Now, are there dogs that are food crazy? Yes, my Labrador would chew my fingers off if I didn't teach him a rule, which is if my hand is open, he is free to take food. If my hand's closed, back off. I can use this communication system to teach positions. So if I want to teach a sit, my dog can follow it. I can close my hand, lure a little bit, sit, open, mark and open, feed. It's a very simple context. Then later on when I'm playing with a toy, if I block the toy, what should the dog do? Back off. You have to teach these things, and I understand, unfortunately, many times, you guys aren't given these tools because these are foundational tools, and you have 5, 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks to get through it all. I mean, like what Ricky was saying yesterday, 8 weeks to do patrol and detection blows my mind. Holy shit, man. That's like, talk about sitting on the accelerator the whole way. And imagine, and you guys have all kind of been there, a brand new handler. You guys have all felt this, especially if your schools were shorter. When I went through, it was mandatory. We had to go through 4 months of school in Florida before we could even attempt certification. And now they've added 80 more hours to that. So I get it, it depends on where you're at, but if you invest that time in teaching some of these basic mechanics, you avoid a lot of your bigger problems later on. So, drive, motivation, and management, dealing with toy and the release of toy. So, like I was saying, many of your dogs view you as an adversary for the toy. How many of your dogs will spit the toy very easily without any stimulation, without any choking of the collar? When you say drop it, your dog's like, here you go, drop it. There's some out there. But a majority of you do this, or hit a button to get them to drop. Because the foundation wasn't there. It's not your fault. It's just the way that system was. So I get it and I understand why you're there, but my goal is try to help you, give you some tools to work through that. Next one, search time to find. So when I review records, the average search time in training to the first find is under 1.5 minutes. Now, depending on your job, that might be within typical parameters, but most of us realize if you watch enough body camera footage or in-car footage, the average handler on a traffic stop is searching more than 1 minute, even on one car. So again, training needs to look like reality. Your dog should be able to search continuously for 20 minutes or more without a find. Right now, a few of you are like, That ain't happening. But watch your dog. See what your dog's internal clock is. And some of you already know this. You know if your dog goes 2 to 3 minutes without finding something, you start seeing some other behaviors that are not desired. So just like working out, you do successive approximation. If you can't bench press 100 pounds, I'm not going to put 300 pounds on the bar and hope that you can do it. We're going to work our way there incrementally. So the same thing with my search duration. I'm going to get there incrementally, but I'm going to build that dog out. And as I build the dog out, sometimes I come back to a shorter duration. Then I go back out further. And the dog doesn't know. It's like, okay, one of these things is going to happen. I either search or I find it and I keep working. Should you reward on a blank search? This is a new topic that has become more and more confusing or opinionated, kind of depends. Like I was kind of saying yesterday, should you not reward your dog for performing the right task? If your dog does the thing correctly, should that not receive reinforcement? So the second part of that is if the dog searches, let's say, this entire room, clearly shows there's nothing there, is that a correct response? Wouldn't you want to reinforce that? Can you see how then I can take away a defense's position that my dog's only hope to get reinforcement is by finding something. And in the absence of target being there, they are prone to pick something so they can get reinforcement. Or I can say, my dog gets reinforced for the right answer, whether there's odor there or not. I've now taken away a big, huge piece that the defense is going to try to take. Some of you guys have maybe even heard of Mary Cable, Dr. Mary Cable. She has testified in various cases around the United States. I happen to be actually friends with her because she was in Nevada. So my mentality was, keep your enemies closer. I wanted to know what she was looking at, what was the point of why she was coming after the cops. And the main thing basically was, her point of view was, our training is antiquated and we fail to move forward, both in the certification aspects and within our training documentation aspects. So she hangs her hat heavily on the use of double blind as a way to say your team is reliable. Double blind, in case you don't basically know, is we do two types of searches. Single blind, which means whoever's in there don't know the answer. There's no one there to save you. It's double blind is testing by definition. Can you use double blind for training with technology? Now we can, with the use of either your body camera, GoPro, FaceTime now. The Europeans do that for certifications on a double blind. The person who doesn't know the answer either is just walking through the search area with their phone on FaceTime and the evaluators are sitting in another room watching. They're not giving any answers, it allows them to see what happened during the search. So, with that said, she says double blind is critically important to prove the reliability of the canine team. Can the team search whatever area set up by the evaluator and come out and give the correct answer? She's not wrong in asking that that's something that you should be doing. But to say you're a go or no-go, whether you've done that or not, is incorrect. And now more judges are siding with that aspect of, hey, we agree double blind is a great thing to be doing, but if they can't do it, let's say it's a small department, they're a 5-person department, that canine handler may not have the ability to have somebody knowledgeable work with them to do a double blind. But it doesn't mean that they're not a valid team that could be out there doing work and establishing probable cause. So, what I employ you guys to do is to do double blinds. Whenever I do a seminar, I promise you by the 3rd day, you're doing double blinds. In every place I have gone to, when I say that on day 1, they're like, ugh, I don't know. And I'm like, you're out there doing the job for real. Why are you scared about this? I just don't know if I'm going to reward incorrectly. My next thing is your dog that fragile that you're afraid if you reward inappropriately a few times, your dog's now broken? Because spoiler alert, your dog's already dealt with that with you many times already. So don't fear this kind of thing. Don't fear crap people have put in your head because they were scared. You have to move forward and say, okay, I want to be better. How do I get better? I get better by challenging myself. I get better by being uncomfortable. Like Mike's slide the other day, I've actually used the exact same, not the same image, but a very similar thing. Hey, smooth seas don't make a good sailor. You have to go through. Like I said, the community I came from embraced constant challenge. Make me fail, make me fail. I want to know what failure is like, so if it happens to me, I know how to adjust. Which is why they could do a mission to go get bin Laden, crash the fucking helicopter, and press on. Because they had to run through failure so many times, this was just another day. And that's what I want to do to you guys in detection. Because in bite work, you will light your decoy on fire if you fucking let them, to see if your dog will bite that guy. But when it comes to detection, you just throw out some hides. Why aren't you masking those hides? Why aren't you pushing? Why aren't you putting hides up high? As you progress through training, challenge yourself. Challenge your dog. Can you read your dog? Do you know what your dog is telling you? That's the important part. How much handler collaboration should be used? Yes?
Before you go on, how are you rewarding on a blank search?
Thank you. I got sidetracked. So, that was going to get... So for me, my dog knows there's 3 ways to get rewarded. Find the odor. Second, search completed, nothing found, and it was correct, gets rewarded. Or I can reward the search itself, which means while my dog is searching, it does something, I'll call it over to me, maybe give it a reward, continue on. I want to reward the dog's searching abilities, because there's 3 things that might happen. So on a blank search, let's say I'll pick a room like this. If I search this room, my dog's clearly showed me nothing. When I walk out of that room, I may reward the dog. There's a video I just posted on YouTube where my dog and I, so he's a firearms detection dog, I search this open field area. I go up, I search a truck and a trailer. He shows me nothing. I call him over to me. He sits, I mark it. I'm sorry. He sits, I pay him, move on. I do not mark. There's nothing to mark on a blank. I don't mark anything in the blank. That's the confusion that happens sometimes, because if you mark something, you don't know what you're marking. But all I need to do is my dog, when we're done searching, good boy, I may take the ball out, we go play. It's a rewarding event that I'm doing. The dog is motivated because, hey, we got to go play. I searched, I did something, I got something out of it. Versus, we searched our asses off and I walk and throw you in the car. Say, that's the part that's not as enjoyable. Do I need to do that every single time? Of course not. Do you need to reward every single time your dog finds odor? Of course you don't. It's called variable reward schedule. I lived in Las Vegas, the home of variable reward schedule. You guys will put in work in order. I will watch people spend $200, lose $200, finally hear ding, 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 win 50 bucks and call themselves a winner. Because you're so excited that you got something. But if you got paid every time you went up to the slot machine, after a while the slot machine's kind of like, whatever. I want to see my dog put in work. And when it puts in work and it knows, there's a thing called the power of hope. My dog hopes it finds something. And then, we talked about yesterday, when you hear the word dopamine, dopamine is at its highest during the expectation. The minute it consumes, it drops dramatically. I just, like I said yesterday, did a podcast with the neuroscientist, Dr. Melanie Uda. If you look up Canine Decoded, that's her stuff. She talks about this. This is how the brain works. It's how your brain works. And if you don't believe me, those who are in the dating world and you're on an app, what is your hope at? Ooh, she's hot. I'm going to keep talking to her. I can't wait to get laid. Oh, yes. You put in work. The minute you get laid, you're like, see ya. Bye. There you go. Your dopamine drops. There you go. I put it in a way that you can understand as a human being. Your dog wants that reinforcer. Some of us as human beings will put in work our entire life for a payoff that happens after we're dead. That's called religion. You put in work your whole life to hopefully go to heaven. Do you know you're going to heaven? You sure as fuck hope so, right? You're trying. You put in work. Sometimes you stumble, but you put in the work. You don't know if that payoff's coming, but you put in the work. That's called hope. But if I pay you every single time, yes, highly motivated dogs that we've selected can endure that constant reinforcement. But I promise you, when you employ a variable reward schedule, you will see that dog, one, not be as frantic and crazy, two, work more clearly because they know they will get it, they just don't know if they're going to get it every single time. Which means when you go to the street and you deploy your dog and it's unsafe to reward or something else that goes on, your dog doesn't shit the bed. It doesn't go, my vending machine's broken. So, and I add the parameters of when I reward, your dog doesn't know the search area. That's the biggest thing. So you can reward at any point in time once you call you're done. But you make that call. And then you can decide how you want to reward, but do something is the biggest thing. So, training criteria, what is the goals of the session? I call this my P's of training, yes?
So just quickly again on the blank search. So if we start rewarding during the blank searches, does there become an issue where the dog stops being as motivated to find the odor because they know they're going to get something at the end?
So great question. Most times no, but to answer, let's pretend it does. Then what would you logically want to do?
Reward more of the odor, or have more odor hides.
You don't have to reward as frequently on a blank. So what she brings up is what happens with mammal training. So with the Navy SEALs, we also had legitimate Navy SEALs, which were our sea lion program and dolphin program. The head guy that runs that entire program is a deputy in Orange County, California, and a canine handler. Scott Klappenbach. He runs the entire Navy mammal program. And we talked about, so the sea lions will swim out and have to swim for a period of time, and they come back, they'll touch a red paddle, means they haven't found anything. But when they're first learning, he goes, they'll swim 10 feet, come back and go, nothing, and they want reinforcement. They had to teach them, no, keep searching, and they intermittently put something out, and sometimes they don't. And then they started realizing, oh, it's the searching you want me to do. And every so often, they'll come back and touch, hey, nothing, and you keep pressing forward. So with the dogs, if my dog was like searching 3 feet and turning around and expecting a reward because it said, hey, this first 3 feet had nothing in it, well then I would change a parameter. But what I'm going to cover here shortly is how I start that. I start that through my protocol system. So whether you're using boxes or pipes or walls, that's where we introduce the concept of blank. So my dog can search the lineup of boxes, the pipes, the wall, whatever it is, there's no odor present. My dog clearly shows that to me, I call him over to me, I reward, and we're done. That's how I start it. It's a controlled environment. I don't necessarily start in an environment like this. I build my foundation, and then I bring in more complexity, like a room, a car, etc. This way the dog goes, oh, okay, this is how the game's played. And under this condition where it's smaller and it's new, they get it. And then they're less likely to do what you talked about. But you brought up a good question because it could happen if you ran into a room like this and you went around and the dog starts learning, oh, okay. But honestly, it's not so much of that because your guys' dogs already have such a history of fines that to them, to turn around and go, hey, I want to get paid for this, it's usually a handler signal. They'll see you do something and they're like, ooh, you got something? I've been rewarded for not finding something. Can I get something out of you? You're like, go back to work. Oh, okay. They go back to work. Right now, you guys already see that without even rewarding blanks. How many dogs pay attention to you, your hand movements, where your toy's at? They do that already. But if you create clarity about how the rules are and how the game's played, they perform better. When the clarity isn't there, they're trying to guess which thing works. Do I pay attention to you? Do I see your hand move? I saw you walk behind me. You're doing the handler dance. All those things they start paying attention to. What are our goals of the training session? Like I said, these are what I call my P's of training. Every training session, when you come to my trainer school, I make you write this out every day. It is, what is the plan? What are we trying to accomplish with this team? What do I need? And what's the procedures to get this done? And the next one is, what is the protocols of what I expect that would happen? And what I mean by that is, would I allow the dog to get reinforced for sniffing the odor and locking in without a position? Would I allow the team to search X amount of minutes without finding something? Or if the team is struggling, what is we call it an abort criteria or reset criteria. If they're not getting it, I'm not going to turn around and say, hey, search that wall one more time. Wait, do it again. I'd rather reset, take you out, make the problem easier or more difficult depending on what I had to do, reset my objective. And sometimes trying to fix the problem I saw in the training isn't best in that situation. It's best to go someplace else, reset, and try again. Walk away with the L sometimes. Take the loss. It's more powerful. You will remember why versus the trainer bailing you out and saying, hey, search that again, or go over here. Or as all of you guys know, when you're walking down a hallway like this and everybody's jaw-jacking in the hallway and all of a sudden everybody shuts the fuck up as head comes in the room, what do you think? Oh, there's something in here. They're all in here looking at me. So what I do is I will do that to you on purpose and on blank rooms. I'll start looking and be like, hey, did you check that file cabinet? Wait, run that one more time. And finally, when you stop trusting me as a trainer, your dog stop trusting you as a handler, and now we're working. Now we're using our nose. Training reality and working fundamentals. It's a balance. Name any pro athlete that doesn't do fundamentals. How many fucking Super Bowl rings does Tom Brady have? 7. Yeah, but what does he do every day? Fundamentals. He didn't care what the championship was. Fundamentals, fundamentals. So my dogs always go to fundamentals in the month. Whether we're doing a wheel, whether we're doing a wall, whether we're doing boxes, or a basic search exercise, we do that. Then I also press forward and do some type of search that matches what I'm going to do in reality. I'm creative. What we used to do, I'm not saying do this, but what we used to do was there'd be homeless encampments that would be vacated, or maybe there's still one person in there. We would ask, we're like, hey, we're going to walk our dogs through here, but we'd have one of our other cops sitting in the area. We'd put our dope out and run our dogs in that highly contaminated environment. Holy shit, could you imagine what those dogs do? They walk in there, they want to piss on everything. Their brains are like, oh shit. But guess what? Once we've done it a few times, when I go do a search warrant at those same type of houses, my dog's head's in the game. I can also work on things like when handlers call me up and go, man, my dog's starting to mark in these houses. It's starting to mark in some of these search warrants we're doing. How do I fix that? Because I don't want to destroy his searching. Oh, okay. Well, what we're going to do is not do anything in detection at that point. I'm going to fix the dog marking away from the detection at first. So we go to places. You guys know there's different places in your city where there's like the place where all the cats are at or all the loose dogs are possibly been going through or living in. Well, I'm going to give my dog a break. I'm going to say, dog, go potty over here. Then I'm going to purposely walk through that highly distracting environment where they're bound to lift their leg. And then when they do, I can make a correction or tell them no for doing that. And then they start realizing, oh, so when you say go potty, but when we're over here, don't do that. Then I slowly bring that back into my detection world, where I'm not affecting or creating a negative association potentially to my search work. That's how I avoid a situation like that. So, handler and dog relationship, this is really important. What kind of bond do you have with your dog? Because that photo right there is not Mel Gibson with Benji. It's just a little homeless guy that AI created for me. But what that shows, because you guys have seen it, how come I can have a homeless guy walk around with a dog off leash in traffic around people with bicycles, and you motherfuckers can't do that? What does that say? And sometimes he's doing it with a belt as a leash, if he needs a leash. That's called a bond. That's called a relationship. I'm going to tell you right now, I have these 65, 70-year-old women that do the sport of nose work that know their dogs and can read odor better than most of my cops. You want to know why? Because they live with their dogs. They're a part of their dog's lives. They know everything about their dog. How many people in this room, any military working dog handlers before you became a cop and you deployed? What was your best relationship with your dog when you were deployed, right? When you were with them 24/7. But yet, in this culture, we're told, make that earn your respect. Lock him in a box. When you're not working, keep away from him. Make him want you.
I promise you, you can't learn your dog if you're not around them. You will never learn those little nuances of behavior if you're not in there with that dog. If that dog is not part of your everyday life. Your dog doesn't learn to manage its emotions. Because when you deprive it constantly, all it wants to do is be fucking crazy. And we've confused that with drive. High energy, displaced is not drive. That's honestly a mentally insane dog. Those are the same kind of characteristics that you see. So, there's that one. How well do you know how your dog communicates? Some of you have pet dogs. You know when that dog wants something from you. You know when that dog needs to go do this. You need to know the same things about your police dog. We have an advantage that your dog is with you every shift. But there's nuanced behavior that you get when you sleep, eat, and are around your dog all the time. Your dog will actually, and people confuse this. Now, can it be done wrong? Absolutely, it can be done wrong. Also, if the dog was a little bit weaker, this sometimes happens more frequently in my single-purpose dog world, where they got maybe a rescue dog from a pound who had been a previously family dog, and then the handler loves on it, dotes on it, then they're going to see, oh, the dog doesn't want to work. Okay, if I start seeing that, what should I do? I make an adjustment. It can't be all or nothing. You see, our industry loves drawing lines in the sand. You either are this or you're that. And I'm telling you, through experience, being around your dogs, the city of Orlando, where I came from, the dogs were not to be kenneled. They were to live in your house and be a part of your lives. To be kenneled when the officer was not there. But it was required that the dog live with you and be in your house. And nearly every handler has a dog that learns to live in the house with them. And the payoff and how they work their dogs is really good. They know their dogs. They're much better with them because of that relationship that's developed. Case in point. How well do you know your dog's needs? What is your dog doing? Can you tell when your dog is having some type of ailment or something's happening to it? If you keep it in the kennel, you don't notice these things and sometimes until they're critically too late. Is your dog a high memory dog? This plays a major role in how your dog solves problems. A high memory dog is going to use memory first. A lot of times, I don't want that. I want them to use what's called inference and problem solving. I want them to use their nose, not just go off of a memory of where I hide something. And then, do you know your dog's triggers? What gets them overly excited? How to manage that. Right now, your manage is shocking the shit out of them. Is that truly an effective relationship building aspect? And I'm saying I'm not knocking the collars. The collars can be used as a really good tool. But when we don't know how to manage our dogs outside of that, because where I'm at, near where Ricky's comes from, San Francisco is this close to banning the use of collars. The whole entire county. So, just like your European counterparts who sat in your seats years ago and said, oh, it'll never happen to us, ask the German Polizei. Overnight, it was thrown on the ballot and overwhelmingly approved by the citizens. So within a 24-hour period, they went from having the tool to not having the tool. And to be punished if they were to use the tool. I employ you to basically say, as a trainer, can I train my dog on leash, off leash, with a collar, without a collar, you need to be able to do all of it, because guess what happens to equipment? It fucking fails. It's guaranteed to fail. Can you control your dog or work with your dog or communicate your dog when one or more of those tools fail you? That's one of the other things I got from working with the teams. 2 is 1, 1 is none, because something's bound to fail. And it will fail. You guys have probably been on something where that tool failed you, whatever it is. It's a sucky feeling, isn't it? So what I'm going to do in training when you work with me is take away some of those tools so you learn how to work despite that failure. And you get better at it when it happens to you. And then relationship versus genetics and training. I was saying this comment yesterday with the group I was talking to. I can take a dog of less genetics, not picked to do this work, with somebody who's not even that good at it, versus a team who's got a selected dog, who's gone through training, but the team with a better bond will outperform the team with genetics and some additional training stacked up on them. If anyone wants to challenge me, I'll be happy to bring some of these nosework ladies and let's run some detection problems. I have a sport now called detection games, where it's an open field. I will put your odors out, I will put their odors out, I will put human remains out, and you guys all run the same search area. May the best dog team win. Nothing's changed.
Their cash prizes.
Yes, we actually do. So, yeah, it's the Canadian dollar. Yeah.
So nothing.
But how many of you would be like, yeah, let me run up against them? It's humbling to your ego when you get beat by a Pomeranian. You know? And they searched the exact same area as you, and they walked by your odor like it was nothing. But yet your dog goes by Birch and was like, ooh, what's this? And you're like, alert, or whatever you're going to do. So this is all what I want you guys to be willing to challenge yourself. So I'm going to speed through this. This is a lot of stuff I've already talked about. So telegraphing, you know too often where the odor's at. Handlers often struggle to read their dog when it's in target odor or working novel or distracting odors. You have to know those subtle cues. There's lack of proofing of the handler. Like I was saying yesterday, stand still on purpose. In your searches, you should be standing still. I should be able to search and go, check here, and try to convince my dog to respond. My dog should be like, if there's nothing there, screw you. I purposely try to get my dog to false. So that way, despite my dumbass later on, when I don't know the answer, my dog doesn't care about that stuff. Yes?
Quick question for you.
Yep.
Is there a point in your training, so let's say like primary search, the dog is leading the way, if there
Yep.
are points of interest where that you as a handler want the dog to check out?
Yeah.
Are you building that into your system as well?
For sure. So we call it, when I go deeper in my classes, that's called scan, then detail. So first opportunity, dog scans that environment, does what it normally does. My job is to interpret what the dog shows me in that space. If I see my dog doesn't search an area, or my dog might show interest in the area but didn't commit to it, that's in my mental notes. So when on the second part of that, when I go to the detail phase, I'm presenting areas, those areas will receive the attention that's due. How much? As little as possible, as much as necessary. That's how we get through that. Whoops. Back one slide there. Clarity of what your dog's being reinforced for. Is it the odor? Is it the alert? This video I'm going to show here in a second, because this last part right here, a lot of your dogs get reinforced from the behavior. There's odor there, but the dog has put a lot of value in the behavior. Which means when something novel is placed in the environment, or if your bomb dog's training with drug dogs, you should be able to put your odors in the same spot, and your drug dogs don't care about the bombs, and the bombs don't care about the drugs. But we have to build that. So this video right here.
Same spot, you mean like in the same room?
Same room.
Same.
Yep, same space, same training venue. Because, and technically I could put them close together, but not necessarily on top of each other, clearly. But this video I'm going to show you how I go about teaching the dog distractors and proofing items. I don't start off by hiding them. Hiding them, setting the dog up for failure. No play.
Today, I want to talk to you about a common question and something many of you see that happens in training. You get concerned when you see your dog give you a false alert, aka non-productive response, aka false positive, whatever you want to call it. Basically what I mean is your dog is alerting to something in the training area that it's not trained to detect. What happens many times is when training occurs with cross disciplines, bomb dogs training with gun dogs training with drug dogs training with whoever else, the training area has the hides placed in it. The bomb dogs search the same area as the drug dogs do. They're supposed to look for the bombs. The drug dogs are supposed to look for the drugs. But when the hides are put out or the hides have been set, many times things like a canvas bag is used as what contains the target odor. So we have a similarity between the two disciplines. Each discipline maybe uses a canvas bag. Maybe it's a scented Q-tip or a label or something along those lines. Maybe a tin, glass jar, any of these things. Or maybe you're purposely trying to proof your dog. Maybe off rubber gloves, maybe off money. We have to understand what context generalization is. Context generalization is when a dog says, hey, there are many things that are common here, but there might be one difference. So for example, if I place this canvas bag that has whatever odorant in it into my search area, to the dog, there's trainer odor, canvas bag. Maybe the only thing new in that space is this thing that we put out. The dog says, oh, canvas bag. Oh, foreign odor in this place. Oh, there's human odor or disturbance here. The only thing different is the target. But if 3 of the 4 things match up, you may see dogs show extreme levels of interest, maybe even generalized to a full-on indication or alert. What happens many times is most of the dogs just show heavy interest because 3 of the 4 things exist. Handlers see this, and if they're running single blind, they may go, oh crap, look, my dog's doing that thing, whatever your pre-alert behaviors are. You start responding in kind. You start doing your doggy dancing. Oh, look, I'm not standing still, I'm moving around, doing the things that you do. So now the dog goes, ooh, there's also something else happening that's common or potentially predicting reward. Let's just add if you've done multiple dogs in the search area already. Let's say the bomb dogs have all run. Now we're running the drug dogs. Bomb and drug odors in the same area. Well now, on top of those 3 things I mentioned, there's a 4th thing that exists. That 4th thing that exists is now dog scent, dog saliva on this location. So now there's an additional significant cue that this thing is relevant. And I'm going to show you in the next part of this video what this looks like. So as I was saying, as a trainer or handler, when I'm placing, let's say, this out, or maybe this distractor out, I got my canvas bag. Let's say this is a bomb hide, but the drug dogs are running this space. So, typical hiding space, filing cabinet. I take this, I open it up, I put the hide in here, I close it. That context looks a lot like a drug hide. Only difference is it's bomb, not drug. As the dog comes into this space, smells the scent of the dog saliva from the previous dogs running, the context of a filing cabinet, which has been typical to hides that you've put out, in addition to the canvas bag, in addition to the trainer's odor, whether they're using gloves or not, there are many conditions present that the dog could generalize and say, hey, there's something here. Whether they actually fully indicate or not would depend. Some dogs may generalize all the way to full indication, especially if you've made your indication really valuable. Other dogs are going to show heavy interest, which in many times convinces or triggers the handler to behave in a way that's predictive that they're about ready to reward. So when the dog sees you do what you do because you saw them do what they do, you start acting that way. The dog says, oh, okay, maybe this is relevant, begins to respond. Or, sometimes, the dog shows heavy interest here and walks off. Handler does not see interest anywhere else, says, well, it must be over here. Comes back over here a second time, maybe a third time, maybe a 4th time. Finally, the dog is like, well, guess what? Must be something here that I should pay attention to. Let me add something else. This space that we are in, before I came in here, has its own odor, its own levels of disturbance. There's been, let's say, nobody in here because most canine training areas do not have high traffic contamination, lots of distracting odors. They're usually the old building or the abandoned space, or there hasn't been anybody in there since during the day because you're training at night. But in general, this space has its own odor to it. So when I come in and I introduce my training aid to this space, this training aid is the only new salient thing in the space. And because of training that you've done previously, you have created context generalization to a dog that when something new is placed in the area, it has a high probability that it's relevant. And when the dog has been reinforced for this, and it is your narcotics or it is your explosives, the dogs are correct, because that is the only new thing and it is the correct target odor. What we maybe fail to do, where we should do more often, is when I put this out, I should also put out something else. But what I'm not going to do in the beginning is go hide it the exact same way I'm hiding my narcotics or my explosives. What I will do is take whatever distracting or proofing odor I have and just simply place it in the space. By simply placing it in the space, it's there, it is a new odor to that space, but it may not draw the dog the same way as concealing it does. I'm reducing one of the levels of context that the dog would use to solve the problem. Yet, the dog is also understanding that, hey, this is non-relevant, it is present, but it doesn't do anything for me. We're going to talk about how to deal with our proofing and distracting odors in this next segment. Okay, like in the previous segment, I was talking about if my true concern is if my dog is actually indicating to something non-target, doing it in an environment like I was previously showing is not the best place to do it because of all the things the dog could use to generate a context clue. Here is a simple odor lineup. In this case, it's an odor. Each item in this wheel is presented to the dog in the exact same way. Each one is in a can. The dog cannot see into the can. The handler cannot see into the can. All the dog can simply do is sniff each arm and say yes or no, is odor present there or not. If there's a distracting or proofing odor that is truly a problem or that I might fear is a problem, I would put this in the lineup. As the dog goes around to each item, sniffs it and says yes or no, is target odor there, or if they're truly drawn to that distracting or proofing odor, they would respond to that. Now, I can clearly see it's not a context generalization, it is truly a odor association that has relevance to the dog, and I have to address that. Just remember.
So I'll add right there. So a lot of times when someone goes, oh, my dog is stuck on this one odor, how do I fix it? I fix it in the most basic way. My dog would say dog biscuits or whatever the hell it was, the dog's distracted by that, then what I'm going to do is put that here in a container and target odor 2 feet away in a container. It's an A or B choice. The dog pays attention to this, the non-target one, they get nothing. All they have to do is move a foot or 2 feet over to get the right answer. The minute they go to the right answer, boom, I mark that. I don't even wait for a sit position. I mark that. I mark forward motion to the odor. Then I start saying, okay, now I move them around. If it pays attention to distraction, it's going to try something again, goes back to odor. Now I might rate for a more committed action. Stay there, freeze for a second, mark and pay that. Then after a while, you'll see them bypass the other thing and go, don't forget that. Once I see they can do a 2 choice, I increase it to 3 or 4 options available to them, and it's further apart from the right answer. But in the beginning, what happens is you put distractors out, and the right answer is 2 or 3 rooms away, or further away. So the dog doesn't make the connection. This is not valuable, this is valuable. The only way you can do that is reducing distance and giving an A or B choice. Yes?
In that scenario of your distractor,
Yep.
Would you, the dog sits on the distractor, would you weigh him out?
Yeah, so there's 2 options there, and either one is going to be available to me because I want you to think about this. Weighting the dog out to the dog looks a lot like a duration exercise, right? Because how many times have you trained a dog to sit and alert perfectly to a distractor odor? but doesn't do the same thing to target odor. You want to know why? Because when you go to target odor, you pay fast as shit. When it's a distracting odor, we wait them out. Waiting out is definitely an option. Some dogs I'm going to wait it out because the right answer is not that far away. However, I might give them what's called a no reward marker, which is just simply try again or whatever I want to do to get them to make the decision to do something else. Communication is better than no communication. Here's your human example. Those of you who have Apple, those of you who have Android, those who have Apple, when someone's texting you, you see a little bubble. What do? You're like, I'll wait. She's writing. I wonder what she's going to say. You got an Android, you get fucking nothing. So you put your phone down and walk away. Giving information is critical. You sitting there watching your computer do the little wheel thing, you're waiting for it to do something, you'll wait there. If it goes too long, or there's no feedback, what do?
Punch it.
Yep. Bad stuff starts to happen.
Hey, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
In that, so I use this like the same kind of like wrong or try again marker.
Yep.
Is your goal, I'm assuming the goal ultimately is to fade that.
Oh, 100%. As little as possible, as much as necessary. Because if you do the one thing too long, the point I know he's bringing up, which is great, if I always went, no, whatever, that is the opposite of just telling him when it's there. They're just going to wait for the negative confirmation. As everything I am mentioning is going to be related to the specific dog team in front of me. As much as possible, as little as necessary. I'm sorry, as little as necessary. So, got it backwards now. As little as possible, as little as necessary, as much as possible. Whatever. I'm now fucked in the head with that one. So, just do it sparingly. Yes.
What about like stim or something like that?
I wouldn't go there because I need to have clarity and I don't want to punish them making decisions at first. So by simply just having a very small two-choice variable in a small space, that they're going to make a decision on their own. If I add stim, I may have a dog start waiting for the stim. So I don't want that to be in the back of their head when I want them to make a decision about this is relevant, this is non-relevant. Does that make sense? Yeah. Exactly. I want them to make the decision. I want to set up the training so that they do that. And if I inhibit that too much or I see a fallout, I have to go back and change something. So that's why it's as little as possible, as much as necessary when you do it. Here, I got it right finally.
You confused me too, so.
I was like, what the fuck? So, evaluate why your error is occurring. In most cases, do not try to fix it in the middle of the training session. Reset and go to a controlled environment. Control the environment, not the dog. If I can control the environment, make the environment simpler, smaller, whatever, so the dog can make a right decision, figure it out, then I start expanding that back out to normal things I'm doing. If I have a very complex environment, the dog doesn't get a chance to solve the problem correctly. Reduce criteria and variables so the dog is easy to discover. So this is a big thing. If you change a variable, if you change something, reduce the criteria. What that means is, if my dog has never searched a room this big before, or this room is highly distracting, my criteria drops. I may not require my dog to go in a full, perfect sit and stare for 2 seconds. My dog does a head whip right to odor, and it's going to odor, I'm going to mark that. Then maybe the next rep or another hide, I'll require what I want, because now I know they got the game. Oh, your head's in it, got it. So for example, those that have little kids, if you're teaching them how to throw a ball, did you start off teaching a little kid how to throw a ball by lift their leg, turn their upper body, cock their arm, take a step forward? No. You went, throw me the ball, and the kid's like, ah! And you're like, yay, that's awesome. You built technique over time. I'm going to reward the effort, especially, this game is important, when I have elevated or hides that are deep. Because you've told your dog through training, through its career, the hide is this far from its nose. How many of you have ever found dope in the door seam of a car? But yet in training, where do we put it all the time? So you've created this expectation in your dog in training that the dope should be, or the target odor should be this close to the nose. But when it's not that close to the nose anymore, you've changed a significant variable. So when my dog does any kind of change of behavior towards the odor, when I've changed depth or height, I'm rewarding that effort. As soon as they start showing me there's something there, gotcha, good. Do it again. I'm going to build strength in their forward commitment to odor. You guys do the same shit in bite work, right? Your dog starts digging into that guy, good, give him the bite. My dog digs towards the odor, give him the odor, give him the reward. So what I do is I play little games in the very beginning. My dog's right there, I have the box here, I might slide the box backwards and then get out of the way. The dog digs forward to go, sniffs, respond. Then I have 2 boxes, drag him a little bit, step away, dog goes forward, makes a choice, marks, boom, there. I want my detection dog to pull me to odor like it does in tracking. When it picks up that person, pull my arm off. Despite me. I don't know the answer, so if I'm going this way, the dog gets odor, goes boom, I'm like, oh, okay. Because I built that in that dog. The dog's forward momentum towards odor is what I'm telling them is important. Seek advice from educated, experienced trainer who watches you in person. Do not go to social media to do this. I know, right? Do not go to a discussion group. Hey, I'm having a problem. My dog is doing this. You will have 100 assholes telling you how fucked up you are and you should do it their way. And none of them have seen your dog. Also, whoever you seek advice from, what is their body of work? Not how popular they are on social media, not how many cool fucking videos they got. What is their body of work? What have they done in the job like you? That experience is going to be relevant. They understand things. What do you guys, when you guys go to court, what's the first thing they say to you? What is your training and experience that qualifies you to do your job? So, when you seek out dog trainers, and this is civilian or law enforcement, what is their body of work? And will that body of work be relevant and help you doing what you do? That's the important part, not social media, not running around. Social media, unfortunately, the way it is now, it's a double-edged sword. There's great information at your fingertips, but what information do you follow? So, document what the issue is and the corrective action to solve it. This needs to be in your records. What did we have the issue with? We had the issue with my dog falsing on rubber gloves. Okay, what are you going to do to fix it? We're going to set up criteria. We're going to do a 2-box choice and get my dog to understand the target odor versus the gloves. Then I'm going to test that further by putting rubber gloves later on in a search area, and we document, does that work? And that's how we get through it. That's what they want to see. They know your dog's not perfect. Test the results and do so randomly. So, here's one of the things I do to handlers to remove handler cues. This is just a simple search. I put the handler behind a blind so his dog cannot use him for body language. This is a dog initially that wouldn't even work very far from the handler. Yes. So you see he marked and then moved away.
Is he looking through the blind?
Yeah, there's a little hole at the top. That's how you can see. The funny part was we were doing that, I had other people staying there watching, and then the audience members were like, yes! And I was like, stop fucking moving! I'm going to put all you guys behind the blind. So, are you a vending machine or slot machine? This is Dr. Nathan Hall talking about research we did. What we learned was dogs would ignore odor if the area they had constantly searched had never had odor in it before. So the dog would go to areas, so in Las Vegas, they search casinos. As they're going through casinos all day long, they don't ever find anything. So we wondered, if you put odor out, would the dog ignore it because it never found odor in those spaces? And sure enough, this is what happened. Come on.
So in this experiment, they were working in the exact same room. There was no contextual effects. It was either you bring them in and it's a high find rate or if it's a low find rate. At the beginning, they're sort of in between. I don't know if this is high or low. If they find something, performance shoots up to near perfect. If they don't find something, performance slowly degrades across the session, even at the 1 out of 10%, which means that they're learning based off of what experiences they're getting within the session, whether there's a high probability of finding something or a low probability of finding something. Never underestimate the intelligence and sort of computing power of your dogs to be paying attention to. Is there odor? Is there not odor? Is this similar to training? Is this not similar to training? Because they will pick up on those contextual cues very quickly. And this cue in this case is simply,
Don't worry about the graph.
I've run a certain number of trials. Did I find something? And if I ran a certain number of trials and I didn't find something, oh, I'm in the low condition. This sucks. I'm not
So
playing.
this was constantly find something.
Or
This is where they
I
weren't
run a certain
finding
number of
something.
conditions. I'm in a high condition. I'm in training. This is awesome. We're going for it, and we're going to rock this day out, right? That's basically what is happening here. So then the question becomes, what game are we playing? Are we playing our Pepsi machine or a vending machine? Or are we playing the slot machine? And if the dog is used to the vending machine, and you get a couple of broken, responses, then they can immediately know that they are in a testing day, which is going to be terrible, versus are they playing a game where it's very difficult to separate, is this a training day or is this an operational day where I have very infrequent targets? So you have two things that are driving this. One, how many times has my dog been reinforced for doing this, right? That is your smart car versus semi-truck. As your dog gets older, the more training we do, we can build them up into that semi-truck so that they'll be more resistant to these things. Secondly is, how easily is it for my dog to tell whether we are in an operational low target rate area or in a training high target rate area? And if we can make those things a little bit more difficult to discern, then we can have a little bit more time in which we get good quality search because they don't know whether they're in that high or that low area.
So how that started was he has these boxes he's developed. Every single box can have target odor in it and distracting odor in it. A little iPad controls which box is the hot box. Any box can be it. As a handler, you don't know. All you do is your dog goes down, your dog indicates to a box, you call the box number, they'll touch that number on the tablet, and I'll go whoop if it's correct or if it's wrong. So as he was teaching the teams to work through low find ratios, boy, we had false alerts like crazy. Because dogs were expecting to find something frequently. So Group A, they kept at a high find ratio. Group B, we brought them down to a 20% find ratio, which meant 2 out of times out of 10, there was something there. On testing day, both groups of dogs did it at a 10% find ratio. The dogs who constantly had finds every session tanked. False alerts like crazy. The dogs that had been brought down to 20%, when they went to 10%, had 0 false alert ratio. So it shows you, if you do something and the dog constantly expects to find something and nothing is there, they're bound to do this. This research is available, which means a lawyer can look it up, which means Dr. Mary Cable can reference it and look at your records and say, here's the data, here's the proof, their dog is bound to false alert because they don't hardly ever do blanks and they don't reward for that. We have the data, and we did it with over 75 working dog teams in the Chicago area and in Las Vegas. And the results were the same. So it tells us when we create an expectation, our dogs will want that to happen, just like you do. Like I said yesterday, you show up to detection dog training, what do you expect to happen? So, simple way, demonstrating dog identifies odor against non-target. This is why you use odor recognition and discrimination testing. Science is a science way of testing and calibrating your dog. Just like you calibrate your laser, your intoxilizer, all of those things, a odor recognition lineup is a very easy way, yes or no samples, does your dog know odor?
How often would you recommend them doing that?
So right now, what they're saying is, training it wise, once a month is plenty. Testing it wise, where the handlers know nothing about it, should happen at least minimum twice a year. Recommendation is at least once a quarter. So, dogs with, what the debate came was how active dogs were, like a really heavy busy unit versus a unit that doesn't have a whole lot going on.
I've heard of people with the UCR stuff talking about right before your shift, you run calibration with the dog.
Yeah.
Take notes and hit the road.
So You could. What we've also started turning into, it becomes the queue.
Yeah.
So anything we wanted to go, kind of what you're talking about, randomizing it more. So at least once a month, do it, and then testing yourself at least, a couple times a year. Certifications, we were talking about this, need to have this no matter what your odor discipline is. Again, your counterparts in Europe, this is standard protocol. Any dog team that's certified in whatever the odor is must do odor recognition testing. That's your baseline. That is just simply, does your dog know the odor, yes or no? So, there you go, yes or no is target odor. What can we work on when using ORTs? So, what we're gonna work on, if I get a problem, my dog is distracted by something, I go to the ORT aspect and work on that. I don't try to solve it in my search area. Let's go back to the boxes, let's go back to the wheel, let's go back to the wall, and give my dog that yes or no choice. Frequency of reinforcement is higher in these games, because as they do lineups, they're going to find multiple odors. Again, my bomb dogs get lots of that, yeah.
So what in your ORT, what is the ratio of live stuff versus distractors?
So right now out of the bomb, it's exactly what you guys used to have in the ATF. So 30 cans, 10 odors, 15 distractors, 5 blank. In the drug dog world, since most are right around that 4 or 5 odor range, we do 15. So 5 with odor, 5 with odor, 6 without, and 4 blanks. And it's randomized how you put it out. So whether it be a circle or a line, where the odors go, you roll the dice, and that's where the box or dice it goes into. Yeah.
And in your world, what is the purpose of the blank?
The blank is to show the dog when there's no odor present, it moves on from it. It doesn't acknowledge the device or the container that it's holding things in.
Okay.
So what you'll see is distracting or proofing, you have cans within cans, right? And each can has odors in it, but we also want to make sure the dog isn't paying attention to the cans themselves, or the boxes. So that's why those are blank with no odor in them, so we can say that part is also checked. There's now a government research firm called Battelle. Some of you guys, if you're in the bomb dog world, may have come across them. The US government is paying them to test teams all over the United States. And they always start off, day 1 and 2 is nothing but odor recognition testing. They do things like toothpaste in there, they do Starburst, jelly beans, they do all kinds of weird stuff that's in there because it was interesting how dogs would pay attention to those things and handlers read it, yeah.
So the amount of distractor you put in seems to be of interest in some areas because some people tend to think they need to put a lot in there.
Yeah,
So that actually increases the chance of a false.
Could.
What is your thought?
So this is why it's always just a couple more than target odors. It's not double the target odors. And so if I have 5 target odors, we will do maybe 7 distracting odors or 8.
No, I mean in the can itself, how much distractor do you put?
Oh, it's going to be in proportion to the target odor. So if it's 5 grams, and so forth. It's not an exorbitant amount over the other one. It's within the normal ratios. Okay. Yeah, we want to keep it baseline the same for everything we're testing. Okay. Setting up your protocols before you begin. Like I was saying, I need to know what our goals are. What are we looking for? What things do I need to test against? Rubber gloves is a common one. Canvas bags is a common one. Plastic evidence bags with evidence tape is another one because much of the dope that you use is packaged that way. So I want to make sure, you guys already know how sticky evidence tape is, so I want to make sure the dog isn't paying attention to evidence tape. We don't know. 2 dogs in the same group, one dog may pay attention to the bag, and the other dog may pay attention to the tape. Or another dog may go, yeah, I got the odor. You don't know for sure what each dog does. We've done dogs in the same litter, same age, same background, same person raising them. The nose was different. What they paid attention to and locked down on was different. Collect data. This is where you can collect data. How accurate is your dog? You've run the thing 10 times. My dog's accuracy level under odor recognition standards was 90%. That's way easier to describe and put in your records than trying to do a room like this. We talk about it all the time. Look at all the different factors that can affect things in this room right now. But an odor recognition test is they're just simply sniffing each thing. Anybody in here from Illinois? So the Illinois state certification now for drug dogs is a odor recognition test. They're one of the first. California is looking at it right now. I know the past president of USPCA, I talked to him, I said, you should do this. He was like, I think we might, but he said, my resistance is the membership. I got to break it in, and the initial idea when we talked about it was a 2-year grace period. allow you guys to do it as part of it, but it wasn't mandatory yet. Get used to it, practice it, because there's nothing to fear. Your dog wasn't used to it until you do it. As soon as they do it, they're like, oh, this is an awesome game. It's the same as doing boxes. It's the exact same thing, but you have to do it. But think about how much easier you are able to defend yourself now when you go to court. It's like, remember body cameras first came out, those that have been here long enough? We were like, fuck those things, man. And then all of a sudden we realized how much it saves your ass. And all of a sudden when people are being jerks to you, it's all on film, they don't want to do that anymore. How much does media want the body camera footage of someone being an asshole to you? They're like, no, fuck that, I want the cop being the asshole.
You get more shots at all the odors when you do that.
Absolutely. So if I want to just run my dog on odors as a training day, do the lineups. When I'm going to go do training, I may put one odor out or no odors out. What I do as a trainer is I set up, like I would normally do back in the day, let's say I set up 6 rooms. I put only 2 or 3 odors out. Each handler only gets 1 room. The room you pick is decided by dice or a number you give to me. So I may do in my head, if you give me an odd number, you're on this side of the hallway. If you give me an even number, you're on this side of the hallway. I'm also removing dog odor from that picture, because your dog is the only dog that runs that space. Because in reality, how many dogs are running before your dog does? Nobody. But in training, you've told the dog scent is relevant, dog saliva is relevant. So when that's not there, in the beginning, some dogs are like, I smell the thing, but there's no dog saliva here. I don't know if I should alert to it. So in training, I make sure you guys get plenty of runs where you're the solo one. And some of you, based on the number you draw a blank room. I didn't pick it for you, you did. So that helps me out. You choose your own fate when you come train with me. Because that way, it's randomized. That way, there's no prediction to it from you or the dog. You just come in there and do your job. That's all you have to do. So, start creating that slot machine versus vending machine in this stage. So, this is my dog Gamble. This was the dog we used in the firearms research. What you're going to see on this lineup, the gun oil is in spot number 2. Target odor is down 2. You will see him hit the gun oil and pause for a second, and then he moves on. I gave him the choice to do this. This was an easy way to do. And you will see, I mark him and then release him. There's the oil. He's like, wait a second, nope. There's target odor. He doesn't move until I release him.
Yeah, I got a question for you.
Yep.
So then, would you continue to run more reps on that lineup, or would the dog be done?
That's exactly, so it depends. I may take that and go, that was powerful. He made a decision, I'm stopping. Because I want that memory to walk away with, I made a correct decision. If I do it one more time, I get a clean run. That could be useful, but I'm looking at it as a learning point. And we both know, I make the joke all the time. I do my stuff I call odor pays, but I also say odor pays, don't get greedy. Because when I do too many reps, how many of you guys have heard one more rep? And I can tell you from the cognitive science side of things, your dog doesn't just remember that last rep. Your dog remembers all the reps, the good and the bad.
Would you, I'm assuming then you would move the location of the target.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And then could you use this kind of setup for helping to develop search patterns? Like
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And that's where I go with, that's what I call step 3, when I start developing that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's with things, sometimes it's with no things there. I have a whole thing I do on vehicles now, not to get too far sidetracked, but I'll just give you guys a picture kind of what he's bringing up. When you guys search a car, typically, you're at the front end or the back end, whatever you typically choose. And you guys have all experienced when you tell your dog to search, it shoots down the car, right? That's linear, so that's why you're taught to go around the car like 150%. Because you know the beginning the dog shot by. So instead of starting, like say, right here, and I'm going down a line where my dog's gonna shoot down it, I start from the side. My dog goes forward, it can't do anything else besides start searching. And the dog makes a decision which way it goes. You know, I say get right here, search, dog hits the car, starts going this way, I'm going that way. It goes this way, it goes this way. What looks a whole lot better on camera. And the way I teach it to the dog is I use these little magnets at the beginning, and I start, the very first place they go to happens to have odor in it. Then it moves to here, then it moves back to here, then it moves to here, then it moves back to here, and there's multiple magnets, it's not just one. So dog has to search. What I turn that dog into is when it sees a car like it sees a box. It's like, oh fuck yeah. And once I get the dog doing really well with that pattern, that working my way around the car that way, magnets are gone, and I just go to the hides.
So letting him kind of figure out what the best search pattern is.
You got it. And they will hunt their asses off. And you really only have to go around a car once, but for sake of practice, we always do twice. Because wind shifts, cars go by, things change. So if my dog starts here, and it goes this way around the car, we get our way all the way back to here, then I just go, whoop, and we go back this way. But the dog dictates how we start and which way we go. I'm hands-free. And what's so nice is those dogs will be, because they've understood it's a low amount of odor and they can work their way around a car very nicely, yeah.
How much of your work is on lead and off lead?
Depends on the job.
Okay.
It depends on what I call situational awareness, what risks do I have, and how do I do that. I should be able to work on leash, off leash, and with a long leash. I need to have all these tools, I can use all of them.
How long do you determine the length of a scan?
Based on the size of my area and the time I have to do the search.
Okay.
Yep. So again, situational dependent, depending on the job I'm doing and the type of detection dog I have. So bomb dogs be different than other ones. Yeah.
What are the pros and cons of paying at odor versus not?
So you're always paying at odor. So what I mean by that, so think about the word conditioned reinforcer. Reinforcer by itself is your reward. In this case, I'm going to say reward versus reinforcer because reinforcement, like I said yesterday, can mean two things. So we're going to pay here and I'm going to pay here. But the dog hears the bell before payment happens in either situation. That bell, so if I ring a bell and pay my dog, ring a bell and pay my dog, what does ringing the bell do to the dog's brain? So now I can be a shitty handler and take my time, my ball gets stuck in my pocket. Once I heard the bell, my dog's like, pay me. But I proof my dog through my movements. So my dog's alerting right here, I'm gonna move around, I'm gonna do stuff. What's the behavior, what should it be? Focusing right there. If it does anything else, start again. And what they start realizing is since payment might happen here and it might happen here, they lock in. If they predict payment is always gonna be here, whether you're indirect or direct, they start peeling away. But when they realize I may pay right here or I may pay back here, they get much more solid in their indication. We are just creatures of habit, and the dogs learn that. Like I said yesterday, there is no creature on the planet that knows you better than a dog. So your dog is already, you're playing poker with your cards facing your dog all the time, unless you start proofing your behavior. So that's what I'm dealing with here, is I make sure. That's why I also test the dog without my body language. That's what that blind's for. I also, in a room like this, I can put odor over there, but I face this way. You want to see a dog get wrecked? Wait a second, why aren't you facing the odor? Because in training, you're doing this to the odor all the time. You're looking at it. I turn around, I turn my back this way. What does my dog do then? So my dogs will go, fuck you, Dad's right here. Some dogs will do this. The first time you do that, they'll go to it. They respond. They're like, where the hell are you? And then they run over to you. Other dogs, if you're facing this way, won't even search this side. They will only search the side that you face. So I build resilience in my dog of me, but collaborate with me to get the job done without using me for these cues. So here's another one. This is Zero. This is an Australian customs dog. She gave me her training aid. Says, Cameron, I want you to watch my dog's alert. I said, okay. I said, I'll go set it up. You come run your dog. I didn't put the fucking thing out. So what's her mental aspect when she comes in that search? So we'll play it and you'll listen to what she says. Dog comes off. That's the first time it comes off. The dog's searching it pretty good. Not seeing anything. Comes off a second time. Searching is getting more intense. Third time. Fourth time. Can you read the behaviors?
What's that? So what's your thought? Tell me.
I don't think so.
Good.
Clean.
She's like, you didn't put it in there. What was her dog constantly telling her?
It's not there.
So what she did, to your question earlier, she called her dog to her, walked out and played. That dog did his job, right? Did there have to be odor there for you guys to read that? What's more confidence building in you? Finding it or reading your dog and going, there's nothing here? It's way harder to say nothing's there, especially when your undercover dope unit calls you up, says we got a trap, we've been on a whisper stop, we just need the can opener to show up and get us in the car. All I need your dog to do is alert. We know there's dope there. I told this exact story to one of my highway patrol guys that came to my class. I said, this is what's going to happen to you, because he's in a hiding unit. So this is what they're going to do to you. So, of course, Metro calls him up, his very first call. Exact thing I'm telling you. We've been watching her, we know there's dope in the car, we just need you to run your dog, and we're in. He's like, okay, gets his dog out, does his first pass around the car. This is his first fucking deployment. It's nothing. Reverses, goes around the car, second time like I taught him. Nothing. He goes, I got nothing. The guy goes, run it again. He goes, no, I'm not running again, I've run it twice. There's nothing there. He goes, I'm telling you, Cliff, we listen, we know there's dope in the car. He goes, well, I'm telling you it's not there. They find their way in the car, of course. They find some other excuse to get in the car, and 35 minutes later, I think he said, yeah, we didn't find anything. Cliff goes, I fucking told you that 35 minutes ago, but you didn't believe me. Well, he's like, wait a second, I thought there was dope. You told me, well, we lost her for 2 hours. Oh, you fucking forgot that part. So don't let them talk you into bad responses. But when you guys, those that have been there, you know what it feels like. You have that internal pressure on you. Get me in. That dog is my can opener. I will get in that car thanks to you. And there's going to be you guys in this room that know that feeling and that have been that can opener, and lo and behold, nothing was there, and you kind of knew it. And you did that bullshit of like, well, there was interest, I'm going to call that. And there was nothing there. And then you made all the different excuses in your head. Oh, there was probably dope there before, this was what my dog was doing. Zero proof of it, but this is what I want you to do. You do more of this, you're prepared. So what is your clarity on reality? Context association, real searches versus training searches. Conditions of the search, types of distraction, reward and reinforcement, handler behavior, other people in the area. Do the shit that looks like what it's going to be for real. It's almost very infrequent that you're the only one there, but if that is the case, you're the only one there. Even though I know it's not sound, I know I've got some ones that are like game wardens or whatever, and they are forced to do the shit by themselves. But if that's the case, other cases, line the patrol cars up, primary vehicle, canine, secondary or third vehicle, everybody's sitting around, you got your people pulled out of the car, sitting right there, all nervous as shit. You gotta go by, if you have a dual purpose dog, what's your dog thinking? It's fucking time to go bite somebody. And in that car is that fear smell that they have learned if they're a savvy dog who's had bites before. They know that smell before. So what I do, I have things I call rituals and habituation. If I'm going to do a detection sweep or search, my dog has rituals. So for my dog he wore a harness that was his detection work. I also, when I got him out of the car, gave him his toy right away. Because that way, I satiated him from wanting to go drag me like crazy and go fuck around. Give him his toy. What does he do then? His brain relaxes and he goes pisses. Does whatever he's supposed to go do. I then take the toy from him, put it in my pocket, let's go. My dogs did that every single time for every single deployment, and that way it looked the same. But when that harness went on and I took that toy out, he wasn't thinking about biting anymore. You might have seen my old dog. Remember Kino?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the dog I did, and that was how I trained him. It was habituation. This way he could differentiate between this is a bite call, this is a dope call. And that was the way we always kept it. So, rewarding on real searches. This is, like I said, situational awareness dependent. I'm safety, I'm going to do that. And then search times. How often is there an alert to a target area, and how often is the search all clear? Start making sure your reality and training look the same. So my dope dog handlers that work in a highly productive environment, training, you only find something in training 40% of the time. I don't want the expert witnesses to come in and say my dog is bound to respond because there's always something we find in training, and I also work a high dope environment. So because if I see your training always has fines and you have a high fine ratio on the street, it's very easy for a defense expert to go, oh, this dog's bound to alert. They don't know what 0 looks like. So what I do is a high working environment, training is about 40% of the time they find something. So that way I can say no. In fact, in training, my dog hardly finds anything. And they're like, what? What do you mean? Well, yeah, because we're a highly active environment. I need to know my dog can search and find blank. And call blank. You just took away an argument from them. So, how many times is an indication but nothing is found? How's this articulated? And then, what do dogs do to car door handles? We talked about that. Know your limitations. Live PD, or whatever the hell it's called right now, clearly shows drug dog handlers and not the greatest of lights. And these poor handlers, they're not used to a guy with a camera doing this as a dog searching. So the dog's like, what the fuck is that thing going on? And the handler keeps trying to make the dog search. Trying to make the dog search versus going, I'm done. Call it. Advocate for you and your dog, no matter whether it's training or real. And then data collection, record keeping. We talked about this. What's being documented in your training logs. Do you collect data on accuracy from training? Document what is in the search area. Misses and training failures and corrective actions taken. Detection terminology definitions. This is defined by SWIG dog, which is now called OSAC. And then, what is failure or a miss, and how do you describe that corrective action, and what does the Supreme Court case law say as it changes? Testing and validation. What is certification? Does certification demonstrate the Canine team's reliability? Should evaluation certifications be updated? We've talked about that. And then review of odor recognition and evaluation of operational performances. And then Canine teams successfully calling it all clear is very important. Then, like I said, the double-blind evaluation. And what if there's a miss or a false? How soon should you reshoot? How soon should you reshoot a certification for canine detection? What if you fail? Can you do it again an hour later? Let me put it in perspective for you. Go to the range. Lethal force. Some of you guys can't shoot for shit. What do we allow you to do? Keep shooting until you pass. And that's lethal force. So, what I'm saying is, it's whatever's reasonable. If that team needs to go back to train for a little while, you're not rerunning again until later on. But whatever it is, needs to be written ahead of time, which most standards are written. And then, should you do multiple certification standards? That's another one. What if you passed USPCA but you failed NAPWADA? What does that mean now? How many have heard that? Yep. What does the U.S. Supreme Court case say? Florida v. Harris. Did they give a shit about certifications? No, it's your training records. So, certify whatever you want. You can go to Snoopy's dog school and get your drug dog certification. They don't give a fuck. They care about your records. So if Snoopy certified you, said it was good, doesn't mean it won't get attacked, which is why I'm saying we need to update it. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day as long as you do good records. And then operational evaluation, I kind of covered that. Just reading through this, I give us back over to Mike. Handler testimony, I want to hit this part, this is the last slide. What is the public perception of law enforcement? So make sure you are above board. Stay in your lane. Don't become a scientist overnight. Don't start talking about odor and what it does and what your dog did. Dude, you are an interpreter of your dog. That is your job. I deployed my dog in this fashion. My dog did this. I know this to be based on my training and experience. That's all you got to do. Well, there was this there. My dog indicated that's what I can tell you. This is why I know, because my training has documented that. Know your job and how to do it. Know your dog, how it works, how you trained it, and how you read it. That is your fundamental course of your job. Why did your dog do this? Why did that happen? Understand the canine team's capabilities and limitations. Don't put your dog in a situation that's not ready for it or that you haven't been through before. If they expect you to search 25 18-wheelers on the side of the road, have you done that before? Is your dog used to searching that long? You may say, I can do one or two, but then we're taking a break. So, know your records and know your reports, because this one right here, know your records. This happened to my agency. They pulled training records, not just of my dog, but the dogs in my unit. And because I had one lazy handler who didn't write down the same shit as I did, he goes, well, who was at training that day? Because I'm looking at both your guys' records, and his says this and yours says that. So who's lying? Who's the lazy motherfucker in the room? I was like, definitely that guy, not this guy. Yeah. What we had to do was we had to clean house. And we had to say, so what we did was our trainer wrote the records and then gave them out to us, because the trainer knows what they set up and they know what they evaluated. All we had to do was put our handler notes, our observations to that. So that cleaned that up. So, and it's okay to admit errors happen. If they ask you, have your dog ever had a false alert? Yep, it has. Absolutely it has. Really? Yep. In training this occurred. If you go to my records on page whatever, my corrective action was as follows, and this is how we remedied that problem. My dog is not perfect and neither am I. And in your guys' neck of the woods, think about what your jury, your judges would think about you guys when you admit that. Like, stand-up group right there. Okay, cool. They're not trying to bullshit me. No, sir, I am not. We are not perfect and we do make errors, but on this day and time when I deployed my dog, this is exactly what occurred. How many think you're going to stop the drug trade with your dogs? Okay, so don't ever take it personal when that shit happens or you lose a case. You're going to lose cases on technicalities. You're going to lose cases because of bad handler judgment, bad decisions made. That's part of life. Because the way I equate it, my best friend said to me, is like killing ants. Yeah, I stopped this ant pile out, and they opened the ant pile up down over here. It doesn't go away. I'm just chasing ants. So, there we go. And like I said, in this next slide will be the QR code. I'm basically reiterating everything all over again. Questions? And then, here we go. Okay. There we go. There's the QR code for the lecture right there, the bigger one. When you scan that, it'll just send you to this thing where you got to put your email in there, and that is because we want to validate that you were here at something I taught, not just bootleg shit.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's all of your review or whatever, but what's your opinion about the Idaho case? Well,
Yep. So, in that case, that's Idaho.
yeah,
Right? So I don't give a shit. That's an Idaho problem. So with that said, you may see precedent from that, but until it affects my system, I'm doing what we do based on our policy and state statutes and the U.S. Supreme Court guidance. That's what I'm going to do. Now, if that changes, then we'll change it. But believe me, I have because I'm really close to Idaho. All those guys called me up. We want markers. Teach us markers. Because what they started realizing was the dog was getting close to odor and fighting to get to odor,
Temporarily
following close to it.
unavailable.
Is it working?
No,
Oh, shit. What is it doing?
temporarily unavailable.
forever to load my phone.
Oh, okay, so that's what it is.
Oh, it is.
Okay, some are loading, some aren't. I know the Wi-Fi here isn't the greatest. Yes?
What's your documentation program?
So that, I always tell people what works for you and your agency. Do that. I care about, can I document what I'm finding, search times, errors, and blanks. I want to put all those in there. I can't really say I hate, there's no perfect one. And again, it falls into what you use. We used cats for years. Cats, the only bad thing, you had to save every page. So we used to make the joke, you can't save enough without cats. PatTrack was mobile friendly, so that made it easier being mobile friendly. Other ones were desktop, it all comes down to encryption too. That's another side of things. And I think all those companies now have got that squared away. So honestly, it comes down to what is ease of use for you guys and ease of review and easy to pull data from. If it's not easy to pull data from, to give you those numbers that when you need them, then that becomes a problem for me. Thank you. Yeah.
Research limit is reached.
Too many people at once.
Oh yeah, I'll leave it up, or would you guys want it? Just email me and we can forward it to you that way too.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think what happened is everybody hit it at once and is not used to getting that many hits on there. How many of you guys got it, just out of curiosity? Okay, so a few of you guys. All right, I'll leave it up for a second as I take stuff down. You can come on up or take a break, whatever you guys want to do. I'll leave it up. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.